Hello and welcome to Spirit Sherpa, the show that helps and encourages you on your journey to unlock your magic mojo. I'm Joshua Radewan, your co-host, here as always with transformational shaman, spiritual coach extraordinaire, my friend. You all know it. But I'm just gonna keep doing it now that you've been calling it out.
What? My God, that's hysterical. Okay then.
I feel like, oh God, who was that? Jesus, that's Drew Carey now. What was the one with Bob Barker? The guy,
Bob Barker.
the hype band
John.
helmet.
Dude. This is
So funny. Kelly told me we were talking a little bit about what we wanted to talk about before this. And I said, I wanted to talk about spiritual tools that can actually be a spiritual bypass if they're not done with the inner work. And one of the things I've noticed in the community that I work with is there's people that get into certain modalities and they think that is the end all and be all of healing. And like I've learned through my work with Kelly that not to be so judgy about this as people know what they're taught. And for what it's worth, it's a reflection of things that I went through in my journey. It's funny because I'm working with the Ho'oponopono right now and I'm like, this is the end all and be all of healing, even though in the back of my head, I know it's the next great tool that I'm integrating into it. But in my head, there's that egoic battle of it. But it's an amazing tool, absolutely works, major transformation happening. But it took me 4 years of inner work to get to that tool and be able to actually use it, if that makes sense. Can you talk a little bit about what the inner work looks like compared to, say, a tool like Ho'oponopono or breathwork?
Yeah, so the inner work is about looking at what causes you to go flying, right? That's ultimately what shadow work is, right? But before you're capable of doing shadow work, you first have to get the monkey mind to quiet the fuck down. The monkey mind is screaming at you all the time, and you're like, and so therefore you're always defending. And so the first step is you've got to silence the monkey mind. You have to get to mental, emotional, and energetic safety, which again, go back to Boundaries for Empaths. It's on the homepage of the website. It's a free e-course. Go get it. That'll get you to the energetic safety piece. Partially, it'll get you to a safer place as an empath. And then you learn how to ward and shield and all the things for the energetic protections, right? So that's the next step for the energetic safety, but mental, emotional, and energetic safety, because until you feel safe, you don't have the bandwidth to change. Step 2 is you have to learn how to solidify your sense of self, your identity, and your energetic container. And that is claim your space and set your boundaries and own your power and internalize your sense of value and learn how to love yourself, right? And then you're also emptying the well of rage, you're opening the heart, you're doing a lot of other things, right? So the first one was welcome to the woo. The second one is woo squared, right? But you don't get to do shadow work until the third one because you need to create that solid container in the second one to be able to do the shadow work, because you need to hold a container for yourself. Why? Because as we talked about on the last episode, sometimes people don't hold you, right? They can't hold you, they don't hold you, they won't hold you, they screw up. They're not capable, they get triggered and now they can't hold the container, whatever, right? So you need to learn how to hold the container for yourself so that you can do shadow work without re-traumatizing yourself. And so that's the general step process of doing this. And no one tool is going to walk you through that. Okay, that's the thing. We talked about meditation in the last few episodes, and we talked about it last episode, and the fact that people can go off the rails meditating because trauma that they were suppressing can come up if you meditate for long periods and things like that. And so meditation can help you bring things to the surface, but it doesn't help you process them. And Ho'oponopono is great, but you have to first learn how to recognize yourself in others.
That and believe that any of this shit can work.
What?
You have to have that. For me, in my personal journey, like it was spoiled. I'm just going to tell you, by taking the Woo series with Kelly, I got spoiled because the way that it has been metered out, there are experiences of the divine within each piece of the work. And I don't know what she does. She still hasn't let this secret out to me, but I can feel it when I open certain lessons, like an energetic recalibration. And that being said, I base most of my discernments or judgments based on going through this process over the last 3 years. For me, a lot of those, like when I see people just hanging on to the certain tools, I struggle with it because I'm like, oof, you're like, that is absolutely valid. Because like the meditation, the breath work, great at stilling the mind, absolutely great at slowing the monkey mind down. But if you're not working on what keeps the monkey mind active, you're just going to have to be in breath work every single day, about every moment of every day, or meditation every moment of every day. But until you get to that root, that core of it, it's still just a loop. That's been my take on it. But that experience of the divine, that is something I lost it there. Jeff, I love you. Edit this out.
I thought it was fine.
Ah, shit. Jeff, never mind. We're just going to keep going. All right.
Yeah. So say more about the experience of the divine for you.
So for me, the experience of the divine was noticing how the inner work was what was unlocking the limiting belief structures, releasing those belief structures so I could see the magic in the world, the synchronicities, like working with the warding and the shielding and beginning to be able to see how the inner work for me was the identification of the things that were keeping me stuck in my belief structures. So once I began to unwind those, I began to see a world of limitless possibilities. And that's the thing about the whole I'm working with right now is it's all about taking yourself to that 0 point so you can go even deeper into the limitless. And that's been I can't tell you how much amazing shit's happened in the last 6 days just from anybody who is on the spiritual journey. We don't judge each other in the sense that we know at certain points we look absolutely fucking insane. So I'm just driving down the road or sitting in my hotel reciting this probably 30,000 times within the last 6 days. I am sorry, please forgive me, I thank you, and I love you. And really just getting to that 0 point where there's no thought. And for me, that's been an ongoing process, even with the Woo series, is because we get to the places where the next level comes up that we're trying to release. And that's that's the structure. It is, at least it's been for me. But I'd love to hear more on how you view that.
How I view what in particular?
Like you talked about the emotional and energetic safety, the place where we begin to find our sense of self and the shadow work, which is essentially woo. Do you believe that getting stuck in any one modality before that is a bypass, would you say, to the actual inner work?
Yeah, I think that modalities are tools, right? They're meant to get us from one place to the next. If you attach to the tool rather than being engaged with your process, then you are bypassing, right? And that's anytime somebody says one tool is going to get you all places, then, they're probably avoiding something. And this is one of the things that we work on very early on in the process is that this dealing with your own resistances. And you and I had this conversation over Marco Polo earlier because you're in the Woo You program now. And in Marco Polo, we were talking about the fact that when you are doing your work, there's an awful lot of, especially in the pagan communities, right? There's this sense, and we do this also just in general, especially if we're in our warrior selves. It has to be hard. We have to work to overcome it, and it has to be difficult, and we got to have pain associated with no pain, no gain, right? And all of that, and it doesn't have to be hard. It is hard to the extent that your resistance is in play. And when you can let go of your resistance, it can become very easy. And that's the key factor, right? You want to make sure that's what you're doing is working on your resistances. What is it that's keeping me stuck here, right?
Oh, I'm a classic avoidant. I think I've
Aren't we
talked
all?
about this podcast before, but I'll be at a point in the work where I know this is the piece of the work. No big deal. This is the piece of the work. I'm going to sit down. But first, before I sit down, this is back when I was really in the observer mode. Oh, I got to have a cigarette first. I don't smoke anymore. I got to go have a cigarette. And now I'm thirsty, so I got to have this water. And now I got to have breakfast because I haven't had breakfast yet. And I can't start this work on an empty stomach. And now I got to take some calls from clients. And now somebody booked a reading and I could do that right now. I don't need to put that off. And now it's lunchtime. And now I got to mow the lawn. And fucking 28 days later, I'm looking at myself like I'm on the same lesson of what the absolute fuck is going on here. And it's like, that's what it was, like I had to go back to some of the previous work to realize that. I got a question. Speaking to somebody who may just happen upon this podcast, who is deep in breath work, who's deep in meditation, and maybe that's the beginning of their spiritual journey. And that's what led them to this moment to reach it, to seeing or listening to this podcast right now. How would you what would you say to them in order to get them engaged in the inner work? Like I always you referenced it. I don't know if it was in this episode or the last one now, but the boundaries for empaths, right? That's a great
Mhm.
place to start. But what would you suggest in them making the transition into a deeper layer of the work?
So, when you're deeply involved in a particular practice, the very first thing I would say is take a couple of weeks off from your practice.
I hate those
Because
lessons.
I know. But sometimes the practice becomes the avoidance, right? We're like, oh, I'm being spiritual. I'm doing my meditation every day. I'm doing this. And this whole concept of trying to be spiritual. Again, we've talked about this before. Stop trying to be spiritual. Okay. Do what nourishes you, do what helps you to grow, do the things that are important, and you will be spiritual. But the goal is not to be spiritual. The goal is to be happy, right? And so we when you're trying to be spiritual and you're not that person already, you're trying to be somebody you're not, right? So stop trying to be somebody you're not. The whole goal of the work is to be you. And so being spiritual, quote unquote, is actually a crutch. It's actually a spiritual trap. It's bypass. And
So you're
I
saying I
say
should be a warrior. I'm just kidding. You gotta know
don't
me
go
and
down
Kelly's
that
back
road.
and forth.
That will be a huge side thing. Yeah.
I love
Anyway,
you.
but let go of your spiritual practice for a couple weeks, maybe even a month, right? I met somebody who'd been meditating for 20 years and hadn't been making any progress. And I was like, take 3 months off. And he was panicked by that thought. And they said, what do I do? And I'm like, you be you. You stop trying to be spiritual, you be you, and you see where that is and see where that takes you. These are the sorts of things that when we get too attached to our practice, we end up being stuck in the practice and not in the journey. We're attaching to the practice instead of to the journey. And that's the difference, right? Every practice has its benefits. Okay. I'm not a fan of breath work, but it has its benefits, right? And I don't use it, but it does work for some people, right? And every meditation has its benefits, right? But nothing is a be all end all. Even as we're teaching the stuff that we teach in the program, there is no one practice that we go, this is the be all end all. We give you a massive amount of tools and a massive amount of understanding and a massive amount of ways to be able to look internally and to do your own work and to step into your own power and things like that. But there is no one be all end all tool. If there was, the program would be 5 minutes long and we'd just say, just do this and you're good. That doesn't work. I would love for it to work. If I had that, I would give it to you and I would be like, go, fly, be free. Fantastic. It doesn't work, right? Because we are complex beings. And so no one pathway is going to work, one, for everyone, and two, for everything.
And that's why your programs I find interesting is like there's no real pathway. That's a pathway, but
Yeah.
it's not drawing from any one already existent pathway.
Yeah.
And there's another thing I've noticed. I have a lot of friends that come out of the Dolores Cannon School, the quantum healing, and fantastic things happen like in regards to those sessions. But there's one thing I've noticed that is different in the work that we do by doing the work at I'm saying slower pace. It's over 4 years, but it's 25 years of work or however. And 20,
Technically 2 years. You've been working with me for longer, but
right,
2 years of actual,
2 years.
the Womb series is
I
two
took a
years.
year and a
Yeah.
half there to integrate.
Yeah.
So there's a difference I see in the energetics of it. Like when you can absolutely, I truly believe you can go in and do these healing sessions, but the knowledge and the wisdom that actually fills up your energetic field is different. Like your vibration raises to me at a different level when you're able to take each and every one of these lessons piece by piece, do the work. It integrates in a way that you can't like bypass it with the tools. And I say this with no judgment. I think I go to quantum healers when I get stuck and I need to be in trance for 4 hours. That's what it is to me. I'm having somebody hold me under until I can figure it out, because I get to a point and I'm like, I can't anymore. So that's what quantum healing does for me. Like, I go to a very trusted practitioner for that work, but there's a difference in the inner work than using tools like that. And I see it in the energy field. You can't fake that, I don't think, if that's the right word. What's your take on that?
No, I think energy healing work has its benefits, right? And I've heard great things about quantum healing in the past. Theta healing's pretty awesome as well. Reiki, I think, is not as much, just because it tends to be, there's less training that goes into it usually. And so the practitioners aren't as skilled in many cases, but it still has benefit. It's not like it's not going to have benefit. But again, energy healing only takes you so far, right? Because the energy healing work does not address your belief structures, right? And your belief structures are what create your energy field. And so it'll clear it for the moment, but if you don't address the belief structures that are underneath it, then you don't actually have a sustainable process. And so this is, again, the reason why we combine the personal growth work and the energy work, is because you have to do them together in order to have a solid foundation to build on.
When people always ask me how I can do what I do, my answer was always like, I have no fucking ideas. But when I step back, it's like, because all of the inner work that led to all of the limiting beliefs dropping and seeing the world from a limitless state, being able to just observe this and to begin to see through the illusion. And that's great. Like, people watch YouTube videos, Instagram videos all day about this is an illusion and all of the shit. And that's great. But do you actually believe that? Because you
Right.
can't actually get to that space until you release the beliefs around it that are like, you can watch the videos all day, you can talk spiritual all day, but can you believe it and can you integrate it and
Right.
then can work with it? Those are two different things.
Yeah. And that's the puzzle piece, right? And this is the thing I see too, when people are more advanced in their process and they get stuck, oftentimes they're not stuck on whatever it is that they're dealing with. They're stuck because they missed a core issue from earlier on in their journey. And this is the challenge with there not being a curriculum for people to follow. And if they never got the early lesson on X, Y, or Z, then the deeper lesson that's showing up now is not going to move until they go back and learn the first one. And that's the challenge. That's the piece. And it's like, how the hell are you supposed to figure that out? And I've talked to people who've been stuck for years. And I'm like, oh, you missed this piece back here. And they're like, oh, God. Okay.
It's so funny. Like, I'm working on buttons right now. And even in the course of podcasting with you, you say certain things, and I feel like that's me. There's this like hypochondriac. I'm like, oh yeah, I must have missed some lessons. That's why I'm struggling in shadow work. Oh, that was my initial response when you were talking right now. It's so hilarious because I'm beginning to see the fallacy in that, right? I'm beginning to see that that's not the case. I've been extremely invested in the work, but it's my fear of not being good enough that comes up in different layers throughout the work, right? So that's fun. Thanks. And by the way, that's I just opened the removing buttons lesson today, so that's a great segue.
And this is the other piece too, right? Is that there's this piece of how do you do the work and recognize when you're stuck, right? Because I'm looking at you going, dude, you haven't been stuck in forever. You're doing deeper levels of the same work over and over again, but that's deeper levels. That's not stuck, right? And there's this, again, it is a resistance to believe that you're stuck when you're not.
That's the illusion.
Right? That's a resistance, right? And if you haven't moved in a year or two, you're stuck, right? If you're a quick processor and you haven't moved in 3 to 6 months, you're probably stuck, right? And this is one of the reasons why my programs used to be a book, and I turned them into programs, because what I found was when I gave the book away, people would get stuck and not know they were stuck. I'd come back to them 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, 5 years later and say, hey, did you ever finish the book? And they're like, no, I'm still actively thinking about chapter X. Different chapter for each person. But I would say, how long you been thinking about it? 2 years. Oh, you're stuck. And they're like, I am? I'm like, yeah. Then they didn't even know they were stuck. They didn't know to ask for help. And I was like, okay, I can't put it out as book.
And that's the benefit of having someone with you to actually walk beside you during the process, right? You've talked about it before, or at least me and you have talked about it on the back end of things, is that in that work, you get to that place of being stuck. And if you don't have somebody to walk beside you, you could stay stuck or just completely abandon the path altogether. And that's the beauty of these programs, is that you have somebody with you all the time if you choose to do the coaching aspect of it, which I highly recommend. I've seen people do both. I've seen great results with both. I just want to say that, but I will absolutely say you will get more out of absolutely taking coaching in
Yeah.
this path. In general, even if you're not doing this work, getting out to people that you see that embody what it is they're teaching. That is a great, like you talked in the last episode, and about trusting your gut. Trust your gut when you see somebody out there talking, and you really resonate with that, and there's a deeper meaning. Trust that. Listen to them. Buy them lunch. Talk to them. These people have great things to offer.
Yeah. And there are a lot of people out there who have great things to offer. Some of them have a wide variety of great things to offer, which are the ones that I generally recommend working with, because then you're not just walking down a single path. But there's value in going down single paths. I've gone down single paths for periods of time, and there is value in doing that, because when you're doing the single path, you're taking a deep dive into it. And so there's nothing wrong with going down a single path, but I would not commit lifelong to a single path, because you're missing. Single paths are like a facet of a larger diamond. And so I like to learn about the diamond, not about the facet. Right. And so I may learn about that facet for a period of time, but then I move on to other facets in the diamond so I can see the bigger picture. And that's the thing that allows you to get a more comprehensive view of things.
During that year I took off for integration, I went in different directions. And what I found was that they all were singular in the path, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Whereas this work led me to the next stage that allowed the path to come to me, if that makes sense. Like you don't teach any specific like deity work. You don't
Mm.
do any of that, but yet deity showed up. And so it was like this process of unraveling, learning the magic, and then the deity that was coming to me to work with me at that time to teach me a deeper learning lesson about that. That's been beautiful. That's been my process. And anybody who undertakes the transformational process is going to have a different process.
Yeah.
It's just we all got different lifetime events that are culminating to who we are in this particular moment of now, which is a whole other conversation. But so it's the process is different, and it's just beautiful. It's beautiful what we all get to share with each other too in these groups. So I think I've taught like the groups. I'm just going to say it. If you're looking for real change in your life, 4 years ago, I was in the fetal position. And I am now podcasting with Kelle. I go out and I teach my own courses. I write my own courses. I teach Welcome to the Woo because I wouldn't leave Kelle the fuck alone about it because
That's
of how
true.
much it changed my absolute life. I'm working on getting these programs into places that can really be beneficial to people that went through similar issues that I did. I am the biggest skeptic. I'm a Scorpio. I'm the biggest skeptic in the world. My immediate answer to everything is that is bullshit until you prove to me it's not. And this process has proved over and over to me that this is the real deal. I was created out of love and a true knowledge of the path ahead. I didn't mean to turn this into a sales pitch, Kelle, but this is absolutely what needed to happen. So
Thank you very much, Josh. I appreciate you. And when we're looking at spiritual paths versus spiritual bypass, right? Spiritual tools, I should say, not paths, but tools. The more wide a variety that you get, the better off you are. So, on the rare instance that I train ritualists, one of the assignments that I give them is to go out and attend other people's rituals. And a lot of them, like every single month, you must go out and attend another ritual, right? Because I want them to see how other people are doing it. And inevitably, they come back and they're like, oh my God, this is terrible. And once in a while, they'll be like, oh no, this was really good. I'm like, okay, great. But there are so many tenets of how to run ritual that a lot of people never learn. And there's But it's important to know what's out there. If you're going to be running events and rituals for other people, you need to know what else is out there because you need to know where they may have been trained and how they may have learned how to do things so that you recognize when they're doing things in a way that isn't optimal. I remember going to Richmond and having somebody doing all of the right elements of how to create a circle, but not actually using the energy to do it. It's like she had watched somebody do it, but she didn't understand the concept. And so when I followed the exact same steps that she was following and the energy showed up, she was like, what is this? And I'm like, yes, because she had learned by watching, not by being taught how. And that's different. And this is some of the stuff that happens. And doing things with different people, one will teach you things you didn't know because everybody has something valuable to offer, right? And it'll also teach you things not to do because you'll be able to see that didn't work. And there's nothing wrong with experimenting, right? There's nothing wrong, especially if you're doing like free events for people and things like that. There's nothing wrong with experimenting. You should not be experimenting with paying clients. That's all I'm saying there. But there's nothing wrong with experimenting, and you should learn how to do it properly because that way you're holding good space, you're being of service, which is what we're trying to do when we do this, right? We want to be of service. We want to be of service in the highest way possible. We want to help others. And that's the purpose of doing this work in the world. So why would you not learn how to do it properly? So that's the difference. Even if everybody did perfect ritual, there's benefit to going out and learning from other people's ritual space because, ooh, this is perfect ritual, but it's doing something I've never done before. Let me learn from that. How is this? They're doing this. Why are they doing it from this angle? You know, what, blah, blah, blah. There are so many different ways to run ritual that I've learned over the last 35 years that as I go through the process, I have a bunch of things that I can choose from for tools. So you were at the Adventures in Energetics retreat. I changed the curriculum almost daily, right? Because I was responding to what the energy was in the group. And I was like, okay, so this is what we need. We need this next. Then we need that next. And then we need that next. And here's the ritual that we're going to do. And I did a ritual every day, which I promised. And I said, don't attach to what it's going to be because I don't know what it's going to be. But here's what we're doing. And because I have all these tools in my toolkit, I could be like, oh, this doesn't feel right. Let's do this instead. So instead of doing a sound healing on the last day, we did a sound blessing because sound healing would have left you open and moving things. And I didn't want you getting onto planes with all that crap going on. That was just not a good environment for that. So thinking about what's going to be going on in the physical world and things like that, it's part of the moving structure. And the more advanced you get, the more of that kind of facilitation is what you need, right? For beginner level stuff, having a set facilitation for a set program that runs the same way every time, that is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that because you're in a beginner state and everybody's starting in the same place. And therefore, they're all going to be going through the process in sort of similar fashions. But as you get further into the process, you absolutely want to be in a container that is more flexible, where the facilitator is capable of adjusting to the energetics of the group as it goes because everybody's bringing their own stuff. And again, we're going back to the last episode on this, but that's okay. We didn't talk about this then, but this is why I'm saying that learning different modalities and going down different paths is important because it allows you to be more flexible as you get into the facilitation side. It also allows you to be more flexible within your own practice. And this happens a lot, we do this in Wu Yu. One of the first 3 months, you're learning how to process your own shadow work. And it's all about different ways to do self-inquiry. Why do you have to learn 30 different ways? I don't know how many there are. I'm just making up a number. Why do you have to learn all these different ways to do self-inquiry? Because sometimes one of them doesn't work. Sometimes 5 of them don't work. Sometimes it doesn't shift until you take yourself into a completely different energetic. This is why you have to learn a bunch of different avenues to get there, because sometimes one of the paths or more of the paths is not working. And so the more variety you can get, the more robust your practice becomes. And the more you learn how to do things at a deeper level, the more you progress in your work. And with that, I think we're going to call this good for the day. right?
Ab-
So thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and share, or remember to like, subscribe, and share. And remember that what you focus on expands, what you intend is what you create. So choose wisely. But sometimes the practice becomes the avoidance, right? We're like, oh, I'm being spiritual. I'm doing my meditation every day. I'm doing this. And this whole concept of trying to be spiritual. Again, we've talked about this before. Stop trying to be spiritual. Okay. Do what nourishes you. Do what helps you to grow. Do the things that are important, and you will be spiritual. But the goal is not to be spiritual. The goal is to be happy, right? And so when you're trying to be spiritual and you're not that person already, you're trying to be somebody you're not, right? So stop trying to be somebody you're not. The whole goal of the work is to be you. And so being spiritual, quote unquote, is actually a crutch. It's actually a spiritual trap. It's bypass.